and welcome to another episode of That Made Your List, a weekly podcast where an average ordinary film fan, that's me, interviews other average ordinary film fans. My name is Dave Goodger, and joining me on the podcast this week we have Paul Oyama. Hello, Paul.
How's it going, Dave? Glad to be on here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for coming on. So before we get going with the list of the questions that everyone gets, why don't you tell us, myself and the listeners, a little bit about yourself?
So yeah, I'm 20 years old, born and raised in the beautiful state of Hawaii, I just recently finished my junior year of college/university. I go to school in Indiana at Indiana University, Bloomington, and I'm actually studying filmmaking. So
oh wow,
yeah, this podcast definitely was right up my alley. Huge film fan, so just really excited to talk about a bunch of different types of movies that I love. All
right, super. So, Hawaii, I take it you're not on the island that the volcano's been.
No. That's the island of Hawaii. Actually, I'm from Kauai, which is all the way in the northwest, the very top left.
Yeah.
A lot of movies filmed here. The Descendants, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Boulder scene was filmed here, Jurassic Park, a whole bunch of stuff. So, grew up in the movie sort of environment to an extent.
Oh yeah. Okay. A little bit of background noise from the families upstairs, but it's all good fun. Okay, right. We'll jump into the questions. We'll start off with the first one. It's one that a lot of people generally try to stumble on or tend to stumble on a little bit. What's your favourite film?
Yeah, this is interesting because this actually it changed pretty recently. For a long time, it was a different movie, but right now, I would say my favorite film is Sidney Lumet's 1976 Network.
Oh yeah.
Starring Peter Finch, William Holden, Faye Dunaway, Ned Beatty, a whole cast of characters.
Yes.
And it's basically it's a satire of a fictional news network that they all work at, where Peter Finch plays an anchor who's basically going insane, and then you have people behind the scenes that are trying to sort of use his on-air outburst to sort of sell the news in a different way. Yeah, have you seen the film, Dave?
I have seen this. It was a little while ago. I saw it. I sort of stumbled onto it after watching another one of Lumet's 12 Angry Men.
Oh yeah,
I watched that.
An incredible movie as well.
Absolutely loved that, and sort of followed it along the line from there, and came across this from there. So yeah, it was a little while ago that I watched it, but yeah, I have seen it. It's
I actually originally came across it because of Dan Merle at Screen Junkies. He was talking about it on one of his episodes of Dan's Labyrinth, his old show. Yes. And I watched it and I was blown away. I just think that for me with this movie, the thing that really puts it over the top is the writing. I think I've said this many times. This might be kind of a crazy statement, but I think that this is the greatest American screenplay ever written. Personally, I just think that it's so brilliant the way that they project forward, and if you look at today's news landscape, it's so similar to the one that they were setting up as this crazy futuristic ideal. But I think now that you see a lot of that being reflected, especially Ned Beatty's speech about there is no you, there is no me, there is only the dollar, and the way that the news is so oriented around capitalizing on monetary value and things like that. I just think that it's incredible. It was written by Patty Chayefsky, who multiple-time Oscar winner for writing. Also wrote The Hospital and Marty, and a host of other films. But I don't know. It's just crazy to me, how brilliant, the satire and how biting it is of culture at the time, and how now it almost doesn't seem like a satire because it's almost too real to be one.
Yeah, no. Reading up about this one is Lumet was on record with Chayefsky, as you say. He claimed it wasn't actually meant to be a satire. It meant to actually reflect what is going on.
Yeah,
obviously,
exactly.
But as you're looking more onto it now, it plays more as a satire of it. It did really well at the Oscars.
Three a lot of acting awards nominations.
Yeah, 3 wins and 6 nominations for it. It got Faye Dunaway got Best Actress in a Leading Role.
I think he got four wins, I believe.
4 wins? Sorry, yes.
Yeah, because Peter Finch
won as well. Yes.
Peter Finch, Faye Dunaway, Beatrice Straight, who won the Oscar with the least screen time of any actor.
5 minutes, just over 5 minutes. Oscar. Ridiculous.
As William Holden's wife, and then Best Original Screenplay.
Lost
the acting
to Rocky though.
The acting, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I still have a huge problem about Best Picture going to Rocky and not this. I know Rocky's a very popular American film, obviously.
Yes.
And this is worldwide, but I just think this movie just like says so much more and just means a lot more and is like just so well made on so many levels. I mean, if Peter Finch won Best Actor, I would argue he's like not even the leading actor in the movie. That William Holden is really the one driving the movie forward, and he's the one with the biggest emotional arc. But I just think, the acting is like phenomenal. Robert Duvall is also in the movie. But yeah, just like cast of characters with just great performances, and it just says so much about like culture, and it's just one of the films that I love satire personally. Like Robert Altman's The Player is like another one of my favorite movies as well. Just like I love like biting satires on like specific cultural contexts, and like the news is something that was ripe to be, I think, to be satire.
No, absolutely. Cinderella Mate, I mean, there's so many of his films that I really enjoy. I mean, I could almost do an episode of the midweek one of the top 5 on him alone. It's Dog Day Afternoon, Serpico, and 12 Angry Men. Even without this one, are a top 3 for me that really do, even though that they're of a time.
The Verdict is also incredible.
Yes,
a whole bunch of. I mean, he has a long list of movies that are fantastic.
Yeah, I was going to say not everyone is obviously no one is exempt from the odd dud, because he has got The Wiz in there as well. But
let's not talk about that.
Yeah, we'll let that one slide under there. Obviously, Peter Finch died before actually winning the Oscar. He was the first person to be offered it to win it
posthumously. Yeah. But, he had a heart attack, I think, in the hotel when they were doing the press junket, I believe is how he died. Yeah, so it's pretty crazy that like it's crazy to think of like what more stuff he could have done in his career. Like he was just sort of hitting his peak as an actor too. Like he didn't really have a big career early on, and then he was sort of finding his stride, and then kind of just puttered out. Disappointing.
Yeah, he really could have gone on to so many more things. No, a really, really good one. I mean, AFI ranked this as the 64th greatest film of all time.
Yeah.
And you look at that, it's for even, obviously, it's ranked up there highly for you, but there's some absolutely amazing films up in there, even to be mentioned in the list.
Exactly,
in the pantheon of greatness. So, that's fantastic. Okay, so we'll move along though. This is one that obviously changes for absolutely everybody. What's the last film you watched?
Okay, so this is one that actually had slipped through the cracks for me for a long time, and it's from a director that I really love. It's about a subject matter that's like right up my alley. So honestly, I don't know why it took me so long, but finally I got around to watching Richard Linklater's Everybody Wants Some.
Okay.
Which is a coming-of-age comedy about a bunch of baseball players in college, centers around Blake Jenner's character. But I was absolutely blown away by this movie. Have you seen it?
I've not. No, this one slipped through my cracks. Okay. I've heard of it. But yeah, I've not seen it.
It's very much he's even said this himself, Linklater, but it's like the spiritual successor to Dazed and Confused.
Yeah, that's how I've heard of it being mentioned, but not got around to watching it yet. No.
And it's funny though, because now I know a bunch of the actors in this movie from other movies. Yeah. Like the lead actor, Blake Jenner, is in one of my other favorite movies that I believe I'm going to be talking about later. And then you got Tyler Hoechlin, who's known for being in like Road to Perdition, and he plays Superman now on TV.
Yes.
Wyatt Russell, who is also in a movie called Ingrid Goes West that I like a lot. But yeah, a bunch of really young actors. I love the use of music in this movie. That's like one of the things I noticed first off. There's a great scene where they're all, like a group of them are singing Rapper's Delight in a car, and they're just kind of like going and having fun. It's like the atmosphere, this captures an atmosphere that I would just like love to be in. It takes place in 1980 at like a fictional Texas college, and these guys are all like, there's some freshmen and some already established players on this baseball team, and they're living in that like a house together. And I don't know, this movie is just like, it oozes fun, and it captures something about sports. I think that's really like the camaraderie that's built like around like outside of the sport. So a lot of it isn't even about them playing necessarily. It's about them like hanging out and bonding, and it's just amazing. Like there are other great musical moments. Like it opens with My Sharona playing as Blake Jenner's like pulling up to the house. There's great scenes like in this like disco club that they go to. And then they go to like a country bar. There's all kind of different settings, and it's just so raw and like realistic. Like like there's really small Linklaterisms, I guess, if you will, where characters will be like singing the wrong words to songs, like real people do in real life, but you don't really see it too much in the movies, and like just really small things like that. And I just love the way that they talk and interact, and just like the sort of things that characters talk about, because it's not just like empty-headed, like, oh, let's go, like, get all the women. Which, I mean, there are elements of that, but there's also like, philosophical conversations going on about like what it means to like, invest your time in something and commit to something that you love. And I don't know, there's a lot that I love about this movie, and I was absolutely blown away when I saw it. I could not believe I had not seen it up until now.
Yeah, and I say it is one that's come up a couple of times, because Dazed and Confused come up on the podcast on various occasions, and Linklater has come up on various times, and it's been mentioned. It's one that still dripped through there. It's going to have to go on my favourite list of films that I've should have seen but have not. So.
Oh yeah, I actually prefer it to Dazed and Confused personally. I don't know if it's because I was more invested in baseball. Like I played baseball my entire life, and like it nails so much about baseball. Like Tyler Hoechlin plays like the star player of the team, and he acts exactly like a star player of like a baseball team acts. If you've ever been on a baseball team, he's like hyper competitive, but like he also like really cares about his teammates, and it's hilarious. There's a character in there called Jay Niles, who nicknames himself as Raw Dog, and is like one of the funniest, most ridiculous characters I've seen in a couple of years from any movie, frankly. He's absolutely hilarious. He's just like shouting random nonsense all the time, and it's so funny. Oh man.
Superb. Well, I'm going to say, I was on the list. I will go back to see it. It took me long enough to go and see Clue, so this one, it's on the list, but I'm getting there with it. So we'll move on. What's your favourite action adventure film?
Yeah, so I think this is probably, I don't think anyone is ever going to pick this movie before me or after me on this podcast, but just a movie that I love for its action. It's not quite as adventure heavy necessarily, but and it's a movie that I love from a director I also love, and that's Akira Kurosawa's 1985 Ran.
Okay.
It's like an epic sort of drama tragedy action film, I guess. It's an adaptation of Shakespeare's King Lear, King Lear story. So Shakespeare has been like a recurring theme for Kurosawa throughout his career,
right.
And it centers on this emperor who he's getting old and dying, so he decides to bequeath his land to his 3 sons.
Yeah,
and like he divides the land amongst them, and then basically the whole film is like sort of like it's sort of Kurosawa's commentary on like loyalty and like what that means, and but really the reason I chose it for like the action scene is there was like a 7-minute extended action scene in like the middle of the film where a castle is being sieged.
All right. And
it's like I think it's one of the best action scenes ever put to film. The entire thing is set to this like sort of operatic sort of orchestral score that's like in the background, and there's like not really dialogue throughout it, but there's it's so well made. It's really brutal too. Like you have people like getting like their arms cut off by like samurai swords and like arrows like going through people's chests, and it's like extremely bloody and violent, but it's like so well done, I think, and like the music is set so perfectly to it.
Yeah.
As like the castle is slowly burning, and like you just see like this entire area get like engulfed in flames, and like the forces like sort of slowly invade the castle, and you see like people trying to defend like their master, and like it's, I don't know, I think that the scene is actually breathtaking. The movie is one of my favorites of all time, personally. I think it's incredible. The movie's really long, and and obviously it's not English; it's in Japanese, so it's hard, I think, for a lot of people to get invested in.
Yeah.
But it's just a movie that I love. I've seen it, I think, like 3 times maybe. Just because it's such an undertaking to watch, like a nearly 3-hour like epic tragedy. Sort of also about like a character going insane. Like the main emperor sort of goes insane in this movie. But yeah, this movie is amazing. That castle scene alone is like some of the best filmmaking I've ever seen, personally.
No, absolutely. It's films like this. I mean, when you sent me the list back, and I said I'm so looking forward to record an episode with you. Because it's going to be such an education for me and myself, and I'm probably sure about 90% of the listeners is probably even higher than that, of these foreign films that, although I've heard of Kurosawa, obviously I've watched Yojimbo and Seven Samurai of his.
Yes, of course. The staples.
The ones that I have got some staples that I have seen. It's some that I've missed out on, but yeah, with a lot of them and a lot of Japanese film in general, I have. I've got massive holes there, so I was looking forward to these, and this is one that, as I say, I've not seen. So it's no.
Yeah, I just think it's fascinating taking the story of Macbeth and changing it from being like a Scottish story to feudal Japan, and like how that sort of translates. And there's like a dialogue, I think, going on between like the way that the government is structured and the way that like these emperors sort of run their land. And I don't know, I think it's just such an like incredibly made film. There's a lot of like moments of like real quiet and like where you sort of just sit and like simmer in like in the feelings that are sort of being reflected on screen. And there's a lot about betrayal, like I said, loyalty. Like it's such a good film. It's actually Kurosawa's only Oscar nomination for Best Director, which is absolutely ridiculous. The fact that he didn't get nominated for like, you know, Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, Rashomon is just beyond me. And Sidney Pollack actually had to like really stump hard for Kurosawa to get this nomination. Just because he was not really acknowledged by the Academy at that point, and this was sort of like near the twilight of his career. This is like one of his last films that he's made, but I think it's a masterpiece.
Okay.
I think it's
fantastic. Okay, we'll move on to them. We'll flop genres. What's your favourite horror?
So yeah, horror is a genre I think a lot of people seem to dislike, but it's actually personally one of my favorites. Just like the feelings you can get from horror that like can't be captured like from other like types of art, really, from like horror films, is like it captures something like so beautifully. But my favorite horror movie is I mean it's I'm not gonna go super crazy niche this time. It's Wes Craven's Scream.
Yes,
1996.
That's on my list as my favorite horror as well.
Oh really?
Yes, absolutely. I love this one.
And you know, like part of me like sort of hates to pick like the sort of parody like satirical horror film, but I just think this movie is like so fun and like so incredible like in so many ways, and like it's a lot more scary I think than people realize. Yes. There are moments of like legit horror, like when when Rose McGowan's character is like in the garage and like and Ghostface just like attacks her out of nowhere. That's like absolutely terrifying. Obviously the opening scene is like one of the most iconic like horror scenes I think in movie history. With you know, hello Sydney. Yes. And then like he asks her like the trivia questions, you know, about horror movies, and he's like, that's the wrong answer. This actually is a movie I could have also picked for the movie I know like almost the entire script of. Like there's so many hilarious moments. Like David Arquette's character when Courtney Cox tells him that she does best with like 15 to 24 men, and he's like, I'm 25, but I've been 24 for a whole year. Like it's so funny, like all like the different backstory behind this. And something that I found hilarious about like the sort of outside production of this movie is Henry Winkler, you know, the Fonz, and everyone knows the Fonz. Yeah, he plays the principal, but he asked not to be credited in the movie, so he could give more shine to the younger actors. Yes, which is hilarious because like in 1996, who the hell knew who Henry Winkler was? Like nobody was really, you know, checking for Henry Winkler movies, so I don't think he would have detracted too much. But I think that's absolutely hilarious. But like just the idea of like just, you know, I mean, killing off like your main star in the beginning of the movie is crazy. Like she's on the poster, and like it was marketed as like this is Drew Barrymore's movie, and then all of a sudden like
it's almost the rebirth of Drew Barrymore as well. It's
exactly
It as a film, I mean, it both reinvigorated the horror genre, but then created its own subgenre of the teen horror slashers. The I Know What You Did Last Summers and so on and so forth. And then after that, ended up being the start of its own
franchise.
Yeah, the own franchise, which aren't as bad as I expected them to be. I don't think they ever match up to the first.
No, I mean, certainly not. I still have a lot of love for Scream 2 and some for Scream 3. Yes. I do. A little problem I have is like this sort of created the idea that horror movies need to be very meta, which I don't think they necessarily all should be, and I think that was a big problem with like early 2000s and like late 90s horror, is they're trying to be Scream, and that's like Scream is just like captured things so perfectly concisely that I think that yeah, just trying to be Scream too hard, I think, led to a lot of horror movies being a little substandard. But Scream is just it's so fun. Like Jamie Kennedy explaining the rules, he's like, "You don't understand."
Yeah.
They're watching Halloween, and there's so many great moments. You know, Matthew Lillard is maybe my favorite performance in this movie. He's absolutely hilarious.
Yes.
I'm feeling a little woozy here.
Yeah.
And, it's just so funny.
No, absolutely. I mean, then it goes on and starts its own spoof franchise as well off the back of it with the Scary Movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the first one's quite funny of that one, but the rest of them, again, it's...
Yeah, very hit or miss. There are scenes that I like in, like, 2 and 3, but, yeah overall, not a huge fan of it. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know, Scream, for me, is just, like, a movie that I can revisit so constantly. Yes. It still scares me, it still makes me laugh. It's just entertaining in so many different ways, and... it's my favorite Wes Craven movie. I don't know if it's necessarily, I would say it's his best, but it's definitely the one that I love the most.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's, as I say, it made my... I'm not a massive horror fan. I like, I've said before, I like the idea of watching a horror film, but then get 5 or 10 minutes in and be freaked out. I'm like, no, I'm going to watch something else. Let's just put Star Wars on or something. But the Scream ones, yeah. I mean, maybe it was. I mean, I saw it when it first came out in '96. I mean, I was.
Yeah. I was not born yet, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I was 21, so you're showing my age there. But it was. Yeah, I just started. Well, I've been with my wife now, but wasn't then for a year, and she used to. Live in university or work at university, and there's a cinema just outside the campus. So we used to go up to visit her, stay every night, and pretty much every evening we used to go to the cinema, to the movies, and watch a film. and so this one, we caught this one, and I absolutely adored it. I mean, the Ghostface itself, the costume itself, has turned into such an iconic costume as well.
And they actually found the mask when they were scouting locations. They randomly found the mask.
Yeah.
So that's how they stumbled across like what is now one of the most iconic Halloween costumes, frankly.
Yes. No, absolutely.
In all of culture, it's crazy. Like that, the way they sort of stumbled upon that kind of thing. And this is actually a movie that I sort of found a lot of love for when one of my favorite podcasts. It's called The Rewatchables.
Yep.
On the Ringer podcast network. That's like when they did an episode of this. Like I just realized like how many like fun elements there are to this movie, and like how much the movie just like gained so much on revisit.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. We'll swift along there. We'll get out of the horror. But what's your favourite drama?
Okay, back to the niche and obscurity.
Okay.
But this is a film. This is actually really hard to find, so I could totally understand if you've never seen of it, or frankly, you've never even heard of it.
Yep.
But it's Hirokazu Koreeda's 1998 film called Afterlife, not the one starring Liam Neeson, not that one. But basically, it's a Japanese film that's about. So the concept is sort of in this world when you die, you get a film made from a moment in your life, and like this movie follows the people that make those films.
All right.
So just on concept alone, I think this was something that like sort of that hooked me right away.
Yeah.
But it's really like a quiet and sort of meditative drama about like sort of what moments people value in their lives and like why they value certain moments.
Yeah.
And as much as like it might not seem like it, the crew that makes these movies, they go through like this like big emotional journey. One of the crew has like a personal connection actually to one of the people that comes to get their films made, like one of the people that died. Okay. And that has like a very interesting sort of personal element. But the movie just I think captures so much about like the human condition and like I said, like just moments that people like that matter so much to people, like specific moments. And it's interesting where like, well, in the beginning you'll see like a bunch of different candidates come up to them, and one girl picks like a time she went on a roller coaster as like her one moment from her life that she gets to replay like for eternity.
Yeah.
When a guy picks like when he meets his wife, there's a guy there who doesn't want to pick anything because he doesn't think his life is like worth revisiting. And it's sort of like, they work with the person, they talk to him for a few days to try to really hash out what moment they want to like keep forever, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think the idea of like taking a single moment from your life and sort of that encapsulating like what you want to remember your life as says so much about you as a person. like whether you go to like something happy, something sort of melancholic, like meeting someone for the first time, or some sort of like experience that you had with someone or by yourself. Like I just think like the pure idea is incredible, and Koreeda is one of my personal favorite filmmakers. He actually just won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, which is basically their version of Best Picture.
Yeah.
He has a movie coming out soon called Shoplifters that I'm really excited for. That won the best film at Cannes 2018. He's made a lot of brilliant films. Nobody Knows, Still Walking, and After the Storm, and his films are a lot like very quiet. There's not a lot of stuff going on as far as plot necessarily, but it's really about like a deep character study. And this is definitely my favorite of his. Like I said, it's a movie that's very hard to find, but if you get a chance, I would highly, highly recommend this movie. I don't know, I think it's so beautiful.
The concept alone has got me intrigued with it. It sounds a really, really interesting concept with it. Is it another subtitled one, or is?
Yeah, it's made in Japanese and it's subtitled. Yeah. I don't even think there are dubbed versions available. So if you're versed to subtitles, it might not be your thing. But I would not at all. I'd recommend checking it out. I think it's an amazingly beautiful movie. That's just just about life,
Unfortunately, it's not me that's averse to subtitles. It's my wife. So it'd be whether I'm sitting there, or she'll probably watch with me and fall asleep, or
yeah. I mean, understandably so. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Let's jump genres again then. What's your favourite comedy?
So this is one that I was sort of struggling with. Like, is it the movie that makes me laugh the most, or is it my favorite movie that is a comedy? I decided to sort of lean into the latter.
Yeah.
So a sort of an actor that I mentioned earlier is in this movie, and it's The Edge of 17. Also starring Blake Jenner from Everybody Wants Some, but primarily starring Haley Steinfeld.
Right.
As a girl in high school who's sort of trying to find herself and figure out who she is as a person. Have you seen the film?
I've not. It's another one that I heard of. I'm not. And this is the one. Is this the one with Will Ferrell in?
No, Woody Harrelson plays her teacher.
Right. Okay. I've got this mixed up with another one then.
Yeah. But no, it's from 2016. Written and directed by a first time director, Kelly Freeman Craig. Who is someone whose career I'm excited to look into. But yeah, basically Haley Steinfeld plays a girl who her father dies when she's like fairly young.
Yep.
And so she's sort of like emotionally like sort of like damaged from that. So she really only has one friend, played by Haley Lou Richardson, who's my cinematic crush right now, if you will. But the movie there is definitely like a lot of moments that are absolutely hilarious. There are some really funny moments you can find in the trailer as well.
Yeah.
Where her banter between her and Woody Harrelson is fantastic. But this is just a movie that, for me, not necessarily hit close to home, but I think it portrays something that I like.
Yep.
And that's like sort of like the way teens deal with like emotionally heavy situations and grief, and like how they use humor to sort of dissolve that, and how like different people will approach the situations differently.
Yes.
The sort of big event in this movie is her brother, who's played by Blake Jenner, hooks up with her best friend,
right.
And then she's sort of like distraught from that, and they start dating, and she's like very distraught from that, so she sort of cuts herself off from people. I don't know, this is not really sounding like a comedy, but believe me, there are a lot of laughs to be had in the movie.
Yeah.
She has this boy in class who clearly likes her, but she's like very, very oblivious to this.
Yeah.
His name's Erwin. He's played by Hayden Seto, who's also in Truth or Dare recently, which not maybe the best movie, but his I guess his career's still going. But there's a hilarious scene where she's at Erwin's house, and they're like hanging out at the pool, and there's just like so many awkwardly hilarious teen moments where like he like sort of like tries to like lean in to kiss her, and she's like doesn't even know what's going on, so she just like dunks her head into the water, and it's so funny. Like there's so many moments that just make me painful, because like I distinctly remember similar moments in high school that were like so awkward, but like they're just hilarious to watch when there are other people doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the dialogue is hilarious. It's like kind of how real teens actually talk to each other. And it's like crude jokes and like making like awful comments about people. And this movie is hilarious, but also heartwarming, and it's just so many different elements that I love. Coming of age dramedy sort of blend.
No, it's. I'm gonna say this is so many of these that I'm thinking I should have seen. I've heard it's another one that I've heard of, never seen it. I'm gonna have to up my game on watching films. But the one bonus is this is your list, not mine, so I don't expect you to see all of them. Okay, fantastic. Kind of in the same kind of script as this, but what's the film that makes you happy?
So yeah, this is the one place where I sort of cheated with my list, but it all makes sense. So I picked two films, but they're in the same franchise. They're back to back. And anyone who knows me knows that I absolutely love these movies, and I'm completely unabashedly unashamed to say this, but movies that make me happy are High School Musical 1 and High School Musical 2.
Okay.
The Disney Channel original movies, starring Zac Efron and Vanessa Hudgens and Corbin Bleu and like Ashley Tisdale and a whole other cast of characters, about some teens at East High who just want to make a musical, and just want to hang out and be kids.
Yeah. No, it's obviously I've heard of them.
Yes.
They're not my cup of tea. They're not my bag.
Oh, certainly not. Certainly not.
I was totally the wrong age group as well for when this
exactly
came through. I am aware of them. I'm aware that they're ridiculously successful. Even though I think the likes of Zac Efron didn't sing in the first one himself.
Yeah, his hit, and then Drew Seeley did his singing voice in the first one.
Yeah.
And this is a movie I could have chosen also for the soundtrack question. I love like almost every song in both of these movies.
Yeah.
And this is definitely a thing where like the age plays a huge factor, because a large part of why this movie like does like make me so happy is like it's just so nostalgic in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
For like my time like in like late elementary and like middle school, and I know that makes you feel kind of old, but like this, I don't know, this movie is. It's something that always makes,
how do you think he makes me
never fails. Yeah, no, I'm saying you. Yeah, it never fails. It just never fails to make me smile. Like I said, like the music, I know like every word to every song in all of these movies. I can almost quote the entire movie, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But like I don't know, I just have so much fun. It's like it embraces its sort of kind of schlockier like musical elements, where it's just like ridiculous and like they're not really trying to have a coherent plot. It's sort of just musical scenes moving between like scenes of like overly dramatic stuff happening. I don't know, like the movie just it's always made me happy. It's always made me smile. There are moments that I love specifically. My favorite song is called "Every Day" from the second movie, and there's sort of a moment at the end where Vanessa Hudgens' character had sort of left or some sort of disagreement with Zac Efron, and then he's supposed to sing a song with another character, and he starts singing his part, and then the other part is like being sung by like this mysterious voice, and Vanessa Hudgens sort of like emerges from the crowd, and it's like this sweet moment that like always just like it takes me back to it like a time that was like obviously like very much more carefree than currently now. But you said about them being successful. It's pretty crazy. High School Musical 1 and High School Musical 2 are the top selling albums from 2006 and 2007. They outsold Adele, Beyonce, and like all kind of like ridiculously huge artists. Like these sold millions and millions of copies, which is like hilarious to think about when it's like this Disney Channel original movie.
Yeah, they absolutely hit the zeitgeist. I mean, across both sides of the Atlantic as well. I think it was the highest ever premiere on the UK's Disney Channel. For the first one, it hit some ridiculous numbers, and as you say, for the right age group, it hits its target audience absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I would by no means try to argue that this is this is better than Singing in the Rain or something like that, but this is just like it's a movie that's so tailored for me. Like the style of music too, and like the way that it's performed, and it's just I don't know. I love it so much, and I talk about it constantly. So a lot of people are very aware of my adoration sort of for High School Musical 1 and High School Musical 2 particularly. I do like 3 a lot. 3 is probably the best movie, like by a pretty decent margin, but the music just quite isn't up to par, I think, with the first 2 installments.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's no problem at all. We'll flip this on its head though. What's the film that makes you sad?
Oh man, this is hard. This is a tough one, but this is a very serious movie. So what I picked for a movie that makes me sad is Ryan Coogler's directorial debut, 2013's Fruitvale Station, starring Michael B. Jordan.
Yep.
the real life story of Oscar Grant, who unfortunately was shot by police at the BART station in San Francisco and on New Year's Eve, and I believe it's 2009, New Year's Eve.
So.
But this is like such a harrowing tale of like, you know, like it's really, I don't know if the people listening are familiar with the movie, but basically, like, the beginning of the movie opens with the real cell phone footage from Oscar Grant getting shot by the police, and then the movie basically plays out his last day, like his New Year's Eve, leading up until that moment.
Yeah,
and it's a pretty unconventional, I guess, sort of biopic in that sense, that like it doesn't try to show like a grand scale of like his entire life. It sort of just boils it down to this one day, and like sort of displays him as like, you know, an everyday person. He goes to the store and like buys food for his mom. Like he goes and watches his kid and plays with his kid. He like argues with his girlfriend, and he's by no means perfect. The film displays that very eloquently. Like it shows like there's a flashback of him in prison.
Yeah.
Which sort of leads to the situation later on in the movie. He has problems with his relationship and with his family. He got fired from work. But like, I don't know, it's just such a harrowing tale that when the end comes, like, I knew what was coming already, just because I was familiar with the situation that had happened in real life. But
yeah,
this movie just breaks me every time. There's a line at the end where he after he gets shot, he sort of is like sort of choking on like his blood, and then he just says like, I got a daughter, and like every time he says that, I just like am in shambles. Like oh god, this movie like destroys me. Part of it is Michael B. Jordan's performance. Part of it is like the situation itself, and it's just, man, it's such a harrowing tale, and like it just shows like anything could just boom in an instant. Things could just be over, and like it just makes me like so terribly sad that this happened, and also like the movie itself like makes me very, very sad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this is another one that obviously that kind of news doesn't filter across to us in the UK.
Yeah.
That well, it's there if you want to hunt for it. You can get the American news, obviously. I came to this film after seeing Creed, and it's another one.
Yeah.
It's very similar to Network. I watched Creed, saw Ryan Coogler as the director. What else has he done? Oh, this is the one before. Let's watch this.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's hard hitting.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a story. Ryan Coogler, though, he had a good old 4 or 5 years into Fruitvale Station, Creed, and Black Panther. It's
one of the best first 3 film runs I think we've ever seen. As far when you take into account, you know, the scope of the movies he's making, like making a movie like as important as Black Panther, making a Rocky spin-off, like, yes. And the fact that these are all 3 of them were all excellent movies.
Absolutely.
And for different reasons. Like, they're not the same type of movie. Like, they're in different genres, sort of, and I think that he's such an incredible director. I'm so excited to see what he does next.
Yes,
I'd love to see him get back to telling like true or like original stories, not necessarily like, you know, sequels and franchise stuff, which he's great at, clearly.
Yes.
But I'm so excited for whatever he does next, and Michael B. Jordan is potentially my favorite actor working today. So it's such a good combination for me, and this is the movie that sort of cements that as being a combination that I'm incredibly excited for.
Yeah, no, it's really, really good one. It's not one that you could sit down and watch repeatedly. I'm pretty sure this is quite happy to say that with this. It's but no.
Unfortunately, I had to watch it for 2 different film classes, actually, so I've seen the movie 3 times now, and it is not an easy watch any of the times.
No, not
it
at
is.
all. Okay, rough, right, so we'll lift ourselves up out of this, though. What's the film that you know practically the entire script of? I know you've mentioned a couple that could fall into this, but...
Yes, so I'm actually studying screenwriting, so this is definitely a question that's very much up my alley. I love scripts and like the way they're written, and, you know, dialogue that's fun to quote. And this is definitely one of my more mainstream selections on the list. But my choice for something I know that basically the entire script of is 1997, directed by Gus Van Sant. Good Will Hunting.
Oh, yes.
Which is one of my personal favorite movies of all time. Obviously, Robin Williams, Matt Damon, Affleck, you know, Stellan Skarsgård, Minnie Driver, Casey Affleck. Like, it's just so much fun. It's hilarious in so many different ways. Like, so many different characters have great lines throughout the movie.
Yep.
And I think my favorite lines are maybe ones that wouldn't be other people's favorite lines. People obviously love the. I mean, it's not your fault. Is obviously like an incredible scene. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. And then obviously you have like the son of a bitch, she stole my line like at the end. But I love little moments like when they walk into the bar and like Ben Affleck's like, oh, this is a Harvard bar. I thought there'd be equations on the wall and shit. Like just like little things like that. Like that I think are so funny and just like make this film like so much fun like to watch like repeatedly over and over again. Casey Affleck has some of the best lines in the movie, too. Like when they meet Minnie Driver and he's like, my boy's wicked smart. He's wicked smart.
Yeah.
Like it's just so fun, like with the accents too. That makes like the movie I think even more fun to quote and to talk about constantly. And I don't know, it's something that is just hilarious and fun and like meaningful at the same time.
No, absolutely. Obviously, Matt Damon is in a dramatic sense. I don't think he's come anywhere close to this since he branched out. He's got the other ones, the Ocean trilogy that he did, and the Bourne films. But with pure drama side, I don't think he's touched anywhere close to this.
I think it depends what you mean, what how you interpret drama. Like I think the Martian and The Departed are like dramas, kind of, but like his and from like an acting standpoint, I know what you're talking about. But yeah, this is like sort of like his big moment. Like obviously he was in like School Ties and stuff like that. But this is like his coming out like his coming on to the party and breaking into Hollywood. Him and Affleck, wrote this together after Damon had made like an original draft as like a entry for like his playwriting class when he was at I think MIT, I believe.
I'm not sure.
Or was it? I think he was going to MIT for a while.
I'm not sure,
but this. I mean, I know the movie was like based on his real experiences with an actual girl named Skylar.
Right.
So that makes it even more fascinating. And like they took so long trying to get this movie made. Like nobody wanted to make the script. But it's such an incredible movie. There's again like so many quotable, fun parts. Even like the scene with Robin Williams like emulating Game 6 of the World Series, when he's like running around his office like it's a baseball field, and like there's just so much to love about this movie.
No, absolutely. As you say, he was by and large an unknown, Matt Damon, coming into this. At the same time, obviously, or just around the same kind of time, is when he was filming Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
And he got the role at Saving Private Ryan because they wanted an unknown actor. But in between the filming and Saving Private Ryan came out, this came out.
That didn't exactly work out,
and he blew up, and all of a sudden everyone recognises Matt Damon as being this guy rather than just a nobody who they originally were.
Exactly, yeah.
2 Oscar wins.
Yep.
Robin Williams there, and then Damon and Affleck for the writing.
Obviously, the screenplay, very memorable moment at the Oscars when they're both on stage together, and like just a great script that's like just so fun to quote. Like there's like the scene with Casey Affleck where he's like, Chuck, I had a double burger. Like I don't know, there's so many like stupid little fun quips that are just like I just love to do impressions of constantly, just every day.
No. Fantastic. Okay then, we're at the halfway point on this one then. But who's your favourite director?
So it's a director who we've already mentioned. This will again come as no surprise to anybody that is familiar with my sort of film fandom. But my favorite director is Akira Kurosawa.
Oh, yeah.
Not only is my favorite, I personally think that he's the best director to ever live. I know a lot of people will say Spielberg or Hitchcock or Kubrick or a laundry list of other names, but I just think that Kurosawa just has made so many like just master films that they're not necessarily all different, but I think they all do different things. Like they accomplish different things. I just think that he's such an incredible filmmaker. Again, like Ran, Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, Rashomon, and even like some of like sort of like lesser known fare is also incredible. Like one of my other favorites is High and Low, which I might mention a little later. But like Throne of Blood and Ikiru, and I think he captures something about certain aspects of humanity, I think, that are so difficult to capture on screen. Like in Ikiru, like the way that the sort of the businessman, the way that he treats his life and the way that like he reacts differently when he's going through like difficult times. And there's so many. I don't know. He just says like reveals so much about different aspects of humanity. I think he focuses on specific ones in different movies, and over the course, I mean, he's made 30 films, and I think like I've seen about like 23 or 24. There are a few that are just like really hard to find because they're like from the early 40s, and there's like hardly any prints of them like anywhere out there. But I think he's made at least like 5 or 6 movies I would call like legitimate masterpieces, and like I'm blown away like pretty much every time I see a new one of his movies. And again, like there's just a lot of different genres. You know, you have like your samurai war films, then you have like your quiet, like, you know, individual dramas. You have like, you know, your crime films. You have like sort of, you know, Rashomon is sort of this weird, oddly structured tale that has sort of shaped the way that a lot of movies are made now when they're told in like, you know, with unreliable narrators where you know what is necessarily the truth and what is necessarily not. Obviously, Seven Samurai is like this huge epic that is basically influenced all the team up movie. I mean, you could say like Avengers has like roots in Seven Samurai.
Absolutely.
The way that this team up of like all this band of characters to sort of accomplish a singular task.
And was obviously it was pretty well. It's the Eastern version of the Western Magnificent Seven.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what the Magnificent Seven is basically an American remake of Seven Samurai. And then I mean, the Hidden Fortress is basically what Lucas based A New Hope on.
Yep.
And there's so much influence, obviously, that trickles down from his movies, but also just the movies themselves, I think, are just incredible. And like, such a brilliant filmmaker. And I've seen a lot of his movies like multiple times, and I will continue to revisit his work. And it's something that I'm constantly just so blown away by. But yeah, just Kurosawa is just incredible in my opinion. Just so good.
Absolutely, and so it's one where I've got a massive hole in, as I mentioned before. Now, without being too down on the Americans, the Entertainment Weekly put out a list not so long ago of the top greatest directors of all time. Now, they're genuinely by and large a jingoistic type of people. He came in 6th as the greatest director of all time, which, when you consider that it's not the world cinema doesn't tend to get into too many people's scopes in
exactly
to rate that highly on there, I think is a testament all by itself. Okay.
Exactly, yeah, and he's just a filmmaker I think that has impacted so many people. Also, like, you know, when you look at guys like Lucas, Spielberg, and Coppola, like they take so much from Kurosawa's work, and like they even helped him in later his career. Like George Lucas helped him make Ran because he was like at that point he like had a lot of trouble financing his movies later in his career.
Yes.
But yeah, just such an incredible filmmaker. I highly encourage anyone listening to like check out his work if you have not. Like it's so good, and I know people are, you know, again, averse to subtitles, but it's something that's worth seeing.
The subtitles work. If the filmmaking's good enough around it, then the subtitles work anyway, and
exactly.
they become part and parcel of it. So that's no problem. Okay, I've got a feeling we're staying with the abstract-ish. But what's your favourite animated film?
Oh, okay, animated. Are we?
Was it animated?
Okay.
Oh, sorry, no, sorry, my bad.
I was like, are we skipping one?
Yeah, no, not at all. Well, favourite film from your childhood. We'll get this.
Yes. So again, you know, if you haven't already been able to tell from the film so far, I am Japanese personally, and a lot of my childhood was not. I mean, I definitely saw a lot of like, you know, American stuff, like, you know, the Disney and like all that sort of classic stuff. But I was also raised pretty heavily on Japanese animation, and I think the film that sort of captures that for my childhood is an anime movie from 1989. It's called Kiki's Delivery Service.
Right.
Directed by Hayao Miyazaki, who made films such as like Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke.
Yes.
Very, very well-known animated director. But
absolutely.
Yeah, Kiki's Delivery Service it's like a fantasy animation film. It's like a young girl named Kiki, who's a witch, and she moves to like a new town. Because like in this sort of story, like, which is like one witch resides over like individual towns and sort of like keeps an eye over it.
Yes.
and she becomes of age, where she I think as a 13-year-old, I think they're required to like sort of like leave the house and start pursuing like their witchcraft and stuff. And it's sort of the story of her and her cat, who in the dub is voiced by Phil Hartman, obviously the like SNL fame, and
yes.
But like, yeah, it's just such like a heartwarming and fun movie about like self-discovery. At one point, she sort of loses confidence in herself, so she like loses her powers, and she has to sort of find her purpose in life and regain like what it is that like made her want to do that in the first place.
Yes.
In the American dub of this movie, which I actually prefer the Studio Ghibli American dubs, just because I think the dubs are very excellent. Mm-hmm. Her voice is done by Kirsten Dunst.
Yes.
Who people know from Spider-Man fame, obviously, amongst other things. Interview with the Vampire, but like it's such a sweet story that like I've seen like this multiple times growing up, that it just always makes me like happy and makes me smile and just makes me think of my youth. I mean, the movie is about youth in a lot of ways as well.
Yeah.
About her sort of finding her place in this town. The town is not really fond of witches, and so she has to sort of integrate herself in other ways. She starts like a like the title says, a delivery service where she like delivers different things to people, presents and baked goods and all sort of things like that. And it's just really about her finding her place in the world. And I think that it's just such a sweet story, and a movie that I watched a lot of times as a kid, and I just will continue to revisit going forward. But yeah, Kiki's Delivery Service is just a movie that I love a lot.
Fantastic. It's not one I've seen. I have the Studio Ghibli stuff. I've seen a couple. I've seen the most prominent ones. I've seen Howl's Moving Castle. Is it Howl's Moving Castle?
Yeah, Howl's Moving Castle.
Howl's Moving Castle and Spirited Away. I've seen both of those. I absolutely adore those. That style of animation. I absolutely. It takes me back to my childhood when there was a it came over into the UK as a series called Bastard of the Planets.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which was that style of animation, but that's back very early 80s, late 70s, early 80s that came over. But I love watching it because that style just takes me back to my youth to watching those.
It's a style that I find myself gravitating towards more. I just like how it looks more so than like American hand-drawn animation, which I also have like a very strong affinity for. But I think that like with anime, it's just something that like I said, like the style I've just latched onto, and I think I love like the filmmaking style and like the way that they tell stories, sort of. And again, Miyazaki is one of my other favorite filmmakers. He's made many a film that I adore. But yeah, this is just one that like distinctly makes me like think of like my youth, and I think it encapsulates a lot of youth, like parts of my youth as well, like just like the finding yourself angles and stuff like that.
Okay, fantastic. Right, now we'll jump onto the one that we skipped over before. What's your favorite animated?
So yeah, I honestly, if I was just answering all these questions like on an individual level, this probably would also be my answer for the movie that makes me sad.
Yep.
It's and also in the anime realm, and it's also Studio Ghibli. It is not directed by Hayao Miyazaki. It's 1988's Grave of the Fireflies.
Okay, I've heard of it. I don't think I've seen it. Pretty sure I've not seen it.
It's the director actually like just passed away like a few weeks ago. Isao Takahata, which obviously very sad. Incredible filmmaker, but it's basically, this story is about a brother and sister who are surviving in Japan in the last months of World War II.
Okay.
So this opens sort of with them at their house, and there's like an American bombing taking place in their town, and they have to evacuate. And from there on, like their mother passes away in the blast, and they have to sort of like live on their own.
Okay.
And it's them just really like struggling to survive during the end of this war, when like there's a huge famine in the country and there's not like a lot of resources to go around, and it's them just struggling to stay alive. And their names are Seita is the brother's name, the sister's name is Setsuko. But it's a harrowing tale. I think it's one of the best war films I've ever seen. There's a lot of elements of war that are so brutally played out in this, despite the fact that it's an animation. The impact that war has on like the sort of the defeated party is something that is very much on display here. And just, oh my god, like it's not even like a specific moment that just breaks me, but like I just cry like the final 45 minutes, honestly, this movie is like so sad, and like it's a very much a tough watch. It's not super movie that like you're gonna want to revisit all the time necessarily, but
Yeah.
it is absolutely worth checking out. It's gorgeous. It's one of the most gorgeously animated movies I've ever seen. Like the animation itself, it's beautiful. Like the colors are just incredible, and like the character interaction is just so good. And it's hard really to quantify a lot of the elements of this movie, just because it's a lot about emotion and connecting to the specific characters and the journey that they're sort of going through.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just their experience in this war setting and after the firebombing of their hometown, where it's two kids on their own and they're trying to they end up living in like this abandoned bomb shelter, and they're sort of scrounging for food, and their brother is trying to like keep up appearances for his little sister and trying to make her feel like things are not collapsing all around them, but like in reality, like it's just like he doesn't know how they're gonna get their next meal a lot of times, and it's just such a harrowing tale of wartime Japan and what like the World War and did to like their people, and it's also like again it's like a side of that conflict you don't see portrayed on film too often.
Yes.
Just because we're so used to seeing like the American version of like the Battle of Normandy and like the sort of more glorious elements, I guess, of World War II. Yeah, exactly. Like say it like liberating people who were in concentration camps and things like that. But like this is the ugly side of war that no one really wants to talk about, and like what happens to people when like you attack their country, like what happens to everyday civilians. Yeah. And it's such a beautifully made movie, and it makes me cry every single time. I've made multiple of my friends watch it, and they've all generally had very rave reviews. So it's something that it's near and dear to me personally.
Fantastic. Okay. Moving on then, I'll make sure I got the right question this time. What's your favourite quote from any film?
This is one of the hardest questions, honestly, on here. Just because, as a big like writing person, I love a lot of things said in movies. There are a lot of quotes from a lot of my favorite movies on here. There's a few quotes I was sort of circling around. I was very close to choosing the Lou Gehrig quote from Pride of the Yankees. Sorry, the Lou Gehrig biopic. I was very close to his sort of final words, and there was a couple ones that I was kicking around, but I settled on a quote that is. It seems sort of simple, but I think it just says a lot while saying little.
Yep.
And it's from the movie Drinking Buddies, directed by Joe Swanberg, and it's said by Olivia Wilde's character Kate. And the quote is, "That's the problem with heartbreak. To you, it's like an atomic bomb, and to the world, it's really cliche because we all have the same experiences." Mm-hmm. And I think that it captures about sort of the way we personalize the events in our lives, and obviously to us, like events just mean so much, but then to an average person, it's like, oh well, we all go through the similar sort of thing. So like on a personal level, it feels like your world is falling apart, but everyone else is going through similar things. So it's almost hard to parse out what those things mean to different people. And I think it's a quote that I just find so beautiful, and it says a lot about like humanity and our individualization of our problems, and like the way that it's hard for us to understand what other people are going through, and like it's difficult to empathize, frankly, with like very catastrophic events in people's lives and stuff.
Yeah. No, absolutely. As you say, it's one that says a lot, but is nailed on right. Yeah. Okay. That yeah. That's one of the ones that makes you think. There's not many quotes from what people have said, but ones that make you actually stop and think. But that's a good one.
I really wanted to do something that like I love to quote, obviously, but I just think that like the thing I love about movie quotes is like when it says something so perfectly that is like a thought that I might have had, but I don't know how to put into words, and like the way that it's put so like carefully into the words is like what impresses me the most.
Okay, fantastic. This has been an interesting one then. So, who's your favourite actor or actress?
Oh man, obviously this is tough, especially having to choose like between actor and actress makes it even more difficult. Not being able to choose one of each. So there's a lot I was kicking around. I sort of came down to three choices that I really had very closely in mind, but I think at the end of the day, it was just the name that came to me first when I read this. And I guess this is not going to come as an incredibly big surprise based on the rest of the list. But my favorite actor is Toshiro Mifune.
Okay.
If people don't recognize the name for whatever reason, he plays the titular character in Yojimbo. He appears in Seven Samurai and Rashomon. He's a very frequent collaborator of Kurosawa, who I obviously talked about earlier.
Yep.
And is just an actor that I think transforms himself in so many different ways in all of the films that he's in. And a lot of his like prominent films came out in like a very specific period, like in the 50s and early 60s. Yep. But I think he's just someone who had so much presence that you could put him in a movie with, like, you know, he could be on screen with, you know, Pacino, De Niro, Brando, and Nicholson, and all these people, and I think he would honestly pop off the screen as much, if not more than any of them, just because I think he carries such a presence.
Yes.
And he's just such an incredible actor. Obviously, he plays like the sort of goofier character in Seven Samurai. They're really kooky and crazy samurai. People might recognize him from there. He plays like the bandit in Rashomon, like the crazy out of the bandit. He plays a lot of like outlandish characters sort of early on in his career. But for me, the performance that really seals it is for his performance in Kurosawa's movie High and Low.
Okay.
It's one of the sort of lesser heralded Kurosawa movies, but it's like probably my second favorite.
Yeah.
And it's a crime drama where where Mifune plays a man who's like an executive of a shoe company.
Right.
And then he gets a note that his son has been kidnapped, but the people actually accidentally kidnapped the son of one of his workers who looks like his son, and then they still demand the ransom. So Mifune's character basically has to decide if he's going to pay the ransom for someone else's child, or if he's just going to let that kid like be killed or whatever is going to happen to him.
Yeah.
And it's such an incredible performance just because like the turmoil that goes on with him, because if he pays up, he basically loses his spot at the company and he's going to be like unemployed essentially. But if not, obviously he has to deal with the guilt of like letting someone's child be killed just because he wouldn't pay for a ransom, and the kid was only taken because of him in the first place anyway. Yes. Like the people specifically targeted him and his son, but just took the wrong kid. So it's such an incredible performance. He has like these little quiet moments that are followed by these huge outbursts and these sort of ebbs and flows between different emotions. And he's an actor that has just so much range. And I wish that he had a longer career. His career really only spanned like less than 20 years, from like 48 to 65, which is really when he was primarily working. But yeah, he's just such an amazing actor that just does so many different things and just brings a presence that I think is like sorely lacking in a lot of actors that you see even today. Like even the actors with great presence today, I don't think that they bring that sort of like quality, the je ne sais quoi, if you will. I guess there's like a quality that it's like indescribable that I brings to the screen that I'm just wowed every time that I see him on screen, no matter what movie it's in, whether it's in a Kurosawa movie or whether it's not. Because he obviously is in other films. He's been in over like 150, 160 films I think in his career.
Yeah, just looking at it, it's well over 100 he was in. So
it's a lot of stuff. Obviously, I haven't seen all of it, but just all the stuff that I've seen, I think he's basically been the best actor in every movie that I've seen him in, which is like I don't know if I can say that for anyone.
No, there's not many that you can say that about. Okay, well that's fantastic. Okay, we get to the controversial two of the list, the good ones. This is where we have some fun. What's your most overrated film?
Oh man, this is one of the ones I was most excited for. There's a lot of candidates for this, and a lot of different people I could piss off. But I think a lot of people tend to, for this category, from what I've seen, just to pick classics that like didn't work for them necessarily. And like I love classics. I don't really want to rail on them too much. They get enough people that are like, oh, they're boring as it is. So I decided to pick a more modern movie that I think is put on very much a high pedestal.
I'm genuinely holding my breath here.
I'm sure that this movie might have been talked about for some people as in some of their best categories. It's a movie from a director that I actually love, and I love a lot of this director's other movies. but this movie for me just does not work, and that's David Fincher's Fight Club.
Okay.
Which I know is a movie that people adore, based on a novel by Chuck Palahniuk. But I just think this movie is so up its own ass. It is, oh my god. I might be able to see out of it. It's ridiculous. So, obviously the movie's, it's about a character named, meets a guy named Tyler Durden, the narrator does. Yeah. And it's sort of a psychological, bendy, you don't really know what's going on. But this movie just, tries to wear too many hats, I think tries to say too many things, but doesn't communicate any of them actually effectively. This sort of anti-establishment statements that are sort of being laid out here, I just don't think are they get really warbled. Try to twist that with this sort of thriller element of who is Tyler Durden and what is this character, and the study of the personal psychology behind this character who has interesting things revealed about him throughout the film. But I just think, generally, I don't like Palahniuk's writing very much, the author that of the book that this is based on. So that might certainly be an element of it, because Fincher, I love Zodiac, I love Social Network, I love Gone Girl. Fincher is a brilliant director, and I don't think the movie is necessarily poorly made, but I think that when you see a lot of people put it on the list of the best movies of recent of the last 20 years or of the 90s or of all this stuff, I think the film just doesn't hold up to scrutiny. When we really try to analyze the different things that the movie's trying to explore, I think it just gets so lost trying to do too many things.
Yep.
And it seems to have some sort it definitely is ambitious, but I just think it fails on many of those levels that I don't think it deserves to be held up whatsoever to the regard that it is. And I just find that just ridiculous.
No, I again, this is on another week, I'm finding myself agreeing with the person that's coming. I can't disagree with you. I've tried to watch it. I don't think I've ever watched it all the way through without getting bored and finding myself doing something else and having to rewind to watch it again.
It sucks because I love Brad Pitt, I love Edward Norton, but this movie is just so full of itself, and it's trying to. That's a very big theme in a lot of the movies that I was considering for this. Is a movie that thinks it's saying a lot, but is actually just
yes.
What are you even doing? What do you gets totally lost along its way. And I know I'm sure people are going to be very upset about the things I have to say about Fight Club, but I just
yeah.
If the rule is not to talk about Fight Club, I don't have a problem with that, because I don't need to talk about this movie ever again.
No, absolutely. Brilliant. I was genuinely, because I've sat in with you on the Full Metal 5 a few weeks back,
yes,
and I was obviously it's certain viewpoints on genre films. I was thinking, is he going to go for one of those?
No, I think that's just low hanging fruit. If I were to pick a comic book movie and stuff like that, that's so I don't know, and I don't know how many of those are necessarily regarded that highly, from a critical perspective.
There's probably only 2 or 3 that could possibly be regarded as being around there, but
yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Fantastic. We'll flip that on its head then. What's your most underrated film?
So actually, for a while, I was going to go with one movie. Decided to sort of flip that a little bit, and a movie that I think is both underappreciated and underrated. It's pretty critically successful. Critics definitely like this movie, but I think that it should have more of a place in conversation when talking about movies of the year that it came out and of the actor that it stars. And that's 2007's Michael Clayton, directed by Tony Gilroy, starring George Clooney.
Yes.
It's about a man named Michael Clayton, who is an attorney, who is essentially a fixer. So he's hired by a firm to go and basically take care of their problems and figure out all the the sketchy shit that's going on with their clients and stuff like that. And I think, to me, this is bar none Clooney's best performance. I know people like to say The Descendants or Syriana or stuff like that, but I just think this is Clooney sort of embracing the idea of himself as kind of a joke, and of him being a facade of this professional, well-to-do man who's actually behind all of that is in shambles, which very much is what Michael Clayton is as a character.
Yes.
He does not have life together. He spent all of his money trying to open a restaurant, which was completely unsuccessful, and this is him sort of trying to find what his role really is, I guess, in this world. it's him being. Yeah, he even describes it himself. Like, he's not a miracle worker; he's a janitor, essentially. He's a janitor at a law firm, and yeah, it's just I think it's such an incredible movie that, 2007, which is probably regarded as one of the best movie years in recent time, understandably so.
Yeah.
When you have movies like There Will Be Blood or No Country for Old Men and Zodiac and this,
Absolutely.
and Assassination of Jesse James, like there's so many movies from that year that are so highly regarded. I think this sort of gets lost in the shuffle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's, for me, again, it's also a thing where I just love Tony Gilroy as a writer. I think it's a well-written movie.
Yes.
It's so efficient with the things that it says, like the way characters are portrayed and like the things that the characters say and what that reveals about them as people. Tom Wilkinson is absolutely incredible in this movie as well. I know that people love Bardem in No Country, but personally I would have given the Best Supporting Actor Oscar to Tom Wilkinson. Who plays Arthur, this sort of whacked out, crazy lawyer who has sort of gone off the deep end. But as you can see in the movie, he can like turn on his serious mode like that and just go completely serious. There's a scene where he absolutely rips Clooney apart, and it's just a masterful performance again by Wilkinson as well. Tilda Swinton won the Oscar for supporting actress in this as well. And yes, the movie is just so well done. It's such an interesting character study into a man who, on the surface, looks like he has it all together, but in reality, like, is just broken.
Yeah.
It's such a great character study, and it's incredible. So many incredible scenes. Obviously, there's a scene of him and the horses that's like pretty well known, but the dialogue is just so sharp and so witty, and it's not. It's one of those movies that's not obviously witty. Like something like Pulp Fiction is very great. Like you can tell how like clever and like interesting the dialogue is like right off the bat, and I think Michael Clayton, you sort of have to tear back a layer to a lot of the lines to realize what they really mean. There are a lot of incredibly written lines, like at the end when he's like, "I'm not the guy you kill, I'm the guy you bribe," to Tilda Swinton, and like, just such an excellent movie that I think deserves a place in the consciousness as far as just great character studies in the 2000s. This is Clooney at his X to me.
No, absolutely. I mean, and it's a role that it was originally offered to Denzel Washington.
Yeah. Very different film.
Yeah, absolutely. He turned it down because he didn't want to. He was skeptical of working with Gilroy, the first-time director, rather than Gilroy himself.
Yep.
Clooney didn't want it for the same reason as well, but obviously it's after meeting Gilroy face to face in the meeting, obviously was able to realise I had the same ideas for the movie and went from there. In a stacked Oscars year, the 2008 Oscars, this was the only one to receive more than one acting nomination.
Yeah.
It received three acting nominations for the Oscars.
Yeah, Wilkinson, Clooney, and Swinton.
For say in a stacked year as well for it as well for films.
Oh yeah, I think that's personally that might be the best movie year of the 21st century. When you look at like the amount of great films that came out around that time.
Yes.
And it's just crazy. Like, yeah, the amount of films that weren't even recognized too, like by the Academy as well. Like Zodiac got no nominations really at the Oscars.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Michael Clayton was like pretty well nominated, but I think that just as far as like film fans, it's not something that's as remembered, I think, as a lot of the other 2007 movies, which I frankly think is just a shame. I just think it's an incredibly well-made movie, and it's just so good.
No, fantastic. Okay, we'll move away from those then, but name a film that you like that no one would expect, also known as your guilty pleasure.
Yeah, so it's just kind of hard because I think that my taste is pretty varying, so I don't think that a ton of people would be shocked by me liking almost anything. Like I talked about High School Musical, like me loving them. Like the fact that I named Akira Kurosawa as my favorite director, and then also said High School Musical is like one of my favorite like movie franchises should tell you something.
Oh yeah.
But this I think is definitely a movie that I don't think people realize that I like, especially that I don't like as much as I do. And this isn't even just a guilty pleasure. Like I guess on a certain level it is, but I think this is a movie that is like legitimately, like I almost picked this for underrated because I think this is legitimately like a low-key like a great movie.
Yeah.
And not necessarily for the reasons that people might think when they first hear it, but that's the Megan Fox starring 2009 horror comedy Jennifer's Body.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think a lot of people know this movie for the Megan Fox and Amanda Seyfried, like making and like the schlockier elements of, the poster with Megan Fox in like her schoolgirl outfit sitting on the table. But I think this is actually like a very brilliantly and smartly written sort of black comedy about horror movies, sort of.
Yes.
It's written by Diablo Cody, who is known for writing, Juno and Young Adult, and recently Tully. She works with Jason Reitman a lot, Diablo Cody.
Yeah.
But she wrote this movie. It's directed by Karen Kusama. But I think that this movie is just really brilliant. The dialogue, I think, is way smarter than it has any right to be as like this sort of teen horror exploitation movie. Because I think a lot of people go into this movie, a lot of teenage boys were because it's Megan Fox. She's scandalously clothed, fresh out of Transformers, exactly. But I think that like Megan Fox is hilarious in this movie. Like she's so perfectly suited for like this surprisingly snappy dialogue.
Yeah. And
I think that this movie, I think that people like it deserves a revisit for a lot of people because I think a lot of people like went into it not really expecting it to be smart, and I think this movie is like way smarter than it necessarily needed to or should have been. A lot of the scenes are like hilarious. Like there are little cues that like when they're talking, I think that they sort of clue you into the fact that this movie is very much aware of itself and is not as openly schlocky as movies of its kind. And I think it sort of it embraces some of the exploitation elements. Like obviously you have like the makeout scene between Seyfried and Megan Fox, but there's also like some interesting stuff like to say about like women empowerment and different subject matters that I think make this movie a lot better than people would think. And it's also a movie that like I legitimately think is like a good movie. It's not like I like this because Megan Fox is attractive. Like it's like this movie is I think is a legitimately good movie.
It's one that I'm aware of. Obviously, I've always thought because I despite having never seen of it, I was like, oh, it's going to be another one of those films. I mean,
it's obviously like there's a reason you think that like it's very much marketed as like a this is for like 14-year-old boys to see and be like, ooh, like it's scary and Megan Fox is like schoolgirl attire, but like it's a lot more than that, I think, and it's deeper. It's deeper than that.
No,
it might sound ridiculous to say, but
I think that's it. I'll give it a go next time I see it. I won't hunt it out, but if it comes across me, I'll jump onto it. That's
I'm not saying you should rush out and see it, but I'm just saying like it's it's better than people give it credit for.
Okay, fantastic. We'll jump back into the genre types though. What's your favourite classic?
This was tough because I love classic movies, and also like the definition of classic is sort of hard to nail down. So I was sort of looking at a year range, and for me, classic is sort of anything pre-1967, which is like sort of the new era Hollywood, the change of filmmaking as we know it. And I went with a movie that I think arguably has the greatest performance ever put to film, and that's Marlon Brando in Elia Kazan's On the Waterfront.
Oh, yes.
Marlon Brando plays Terry Malloy, who is a boxer who's now a longshoreman, working under a gangster named Johnny Friendly, who's played by Lee J. Cobb, again, of 12 Angry Men fame. This movie the performance is just, this is like our house performance in like every sense of the word. Brando is just chewing up scenery on every single scene. And he's just so masterful the way like his emotional range in this movie when he's showing his sort of vulnerable side to Eva Marie Saint's character. When he's trying to be tough in front of Johnny Friendly and the guys, in front of his brother. Obviously you have the famous could have been a contender little exchange in the taxi. But I think Brad is such a powerhouse in this movie, and again, like Elia Kazan as a director, I'm very conflicted about because of some of the things he did outside of filmmaking itself. But like this film, I think is just masterful, and Brando just goes to so many depths and levels. And the priest character, I think, is a super interesting character. The way that he's also afraid of the mob, but he's trying to sort of bring some sort of like religious moral backbone, I guess. To this town. And like the way that the town is sort of ruled over with an iron fist by Johnny Friendly, and I think like Terry Malloy as this struggling man who like could have like legit, like he said, he could have like been something big, but he sort of bit the bullet for a crime boss. It's kind of crazy to think that he just basically threw his whole life away to make some money. Like, it's pretty crazy. And yeah, Brando just so moving in like every single scene. And another quote that I considered from one of my favorite quotes is actually not the contender quote. It's at a different scene in the movie where he says, "That's my motto. Do it to him before he does it to you." So that's like sort of his character's mantra.
Yeah.
And sort of that's why he's like such a closed off and like emotionally distant figure, is because he's just been screwed over so many times in his life that he's just so emotionally guarded that he just shuts people out. And I think that character is so fascinating to me, like the character of Terry Malloy. It's just so good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's another one that did absolutely stellar at that year's Oscars. 8 wins and another 4 nominations.
Including the big one.
Yeah,
the big one. Best Picture.
Yeah, the first of only 2 leading actor Oscars for Brando. Obviously, the one being Godfather.
Godfather, yeah.
Yeah. Some absolutely heavyweight performance, as you say, from Brando here. And then, although it's obviously he's young as he is there, the power that he exudes when he's on screen.
Exactly. It's just like, again, presence just like on entirely another level.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Fantastic. Okay, we'll move on then. Just the penultimate one. What's the film with the best soundtrack?
So yeah, I think with soundtrack, this is one that I think I'm going to go a sort of different way than people have seen me going. A lot of people pick like soundtracks, like, you know, movies with like a bunch of like popular and interesting songs on it. I could have gone route. Honestly, Everybody Wants Some, which I mentioned earlier, would be a candidate for that, just because the music is like so well done. Yep. But generally, I'm actually more of a scores guy than a soundtracks guy with movies. And I picked what is my favorite score of all time, in one of my favorite films of all time, period, and that's Vangelis' score to Ridley Scott's Blade Runner.
Oh yes.
This soundtrack. This is just. It's the definition of a soundtrack that puts you in this world.
Yes.
Just the way that it envelops you in this neo-noir, futuristic city of Los Angeles, and the way that it just takes you there into this like sort of the gritty, disgusting streets. You could like listen to the music and like close your eyes, and I think like you just feel like you're in Blade Runner. You're not watching the movie. It's such an incredible it's electronic score. That is just so well done, and I'm transfixed every time I watch this movie just because of the music. I mean, the music alone is, I think, incredible.
Yes,
and even in 2049, the music is also amazing. But a lot of that is like homages to the original music by Vangelis.
Not seen the sequel yet. That's
really man, it's such a good one. One of my it's in my top 5 of 2017 for sure.
Really? Okay. And so I'd heard so many again conflicting stories and reviews of it that I was like, I will get around to it. It's just for it to obviously jump onto the screen in front of me.
Yeah, the original Blade Runner is just one of my. It's probably my 3rd favorite movie of all time, personally. Yeah. I know it's kind of crazy, but it's my favorite Harrison Ford performance and movie. And, it's the one that resonates with me the most, and I think that like the music is such a big contributor of that in scenes where he's walking and talking to Gaff in the city, and when he's when he's like first meeting Rachel, and when Rutger Hauer again is like going in and looking for Tyrell. Like there are so many different themes that play throughout this that I think resonate so well on a sonic level. This sort of the electronic and mysterious and synthy detached music that you have in this is like something that's always blown me away. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's obviously made in 82 to be a 2019. Is it 2019?
2025, I believe.
2025. So. But the music, although it's 80s, the world that they build in there, that music from Vangelis just fits the look of the world so perfectly. You're not looking. If you watch it now, you're not looking.
Wait, no, it is 2019. You're right. It is 2019. Yeah.
But the music fits the world that they created. It's even though it's set in the future, obviously it's music from the 80s. He did such a superb job of scoring to fit the film. It stands the test of time absolutely fantastically. Brilliant. Okay then, final one. We've made it to the end. What's your favourite film franchise?
Oh man, this is tough because I think in almost every franchise I love, there's a bad entry, so that complicates things a lot of times with choosing things like this. And I just go with one that does have a bad entry, admittedly. The most recent entry is not good. I will not deny that at all. But my favorite film franchise is the Bourne franchise.
Oh, fantastic!
Obviously started with the Bourne Identity and moving on to Supremacy and Ultimatum, Legacy and Jason Bourne. And I think the reason that I love the franchise so much is that the thing that was a true testament for me is I'm one of the very few defenders of Bourne Legacy. I like that movie a lot. Again, I talked about Tony Gilroy earlier.
Yes.
But I think that that movie it's so fun, and Edward Norton he has a really great performance. Jeremy Renner is very good. Oscar Isaac, and I think that movie is it's a lot smarter than some of the other movies. The first three definitely have the best action in the franchise. Particularly the second and the first and the third have I think some of the best modern action. It's sort of shaky cam, but you can sort of tell what's going on still. Greengrass, I think, knows how to do shaky cam well, unlike other directors. And it's again visceral action at its modern peak, just the hand-to-hand combat and some of the chase scenes with Bourne running throughout the city, and it's consistently a franchise that it just always has me enthralled at every twist and turn, and despite the fact that 2016 Jason Bourne was a pretty bad movie, admittedly, it's still a franchise that I absolutely adore. The first four entries, love all of them to varying degrees, and it's such a good franchise. I think it's also a somewhat unheralded franchise. When we hear people talk about their favorite franchise, that's not usually one. I mean, generally because people don't really like the last two entries, but yeah, I think Legacy is actually a really good movie. It's probably my second or third one movie, and Supremacy or Ultimatum I think is the best of them, which is the third made in 2007. Yes. But obviously Identity and Supremacy are also very, very well, excellent action movies, and I guess as you can see from this list, I'm a pretty big Matt Damon fan. So
no, absolutely. Identity made it on my list originally as my favourite action.
Oh, really?
That style of it. I mean, it's obviously as the film itself it pushed Bond to reinvigorate itself and redo that.
I think that definitely had a big influence on the Craig Bond movies, the way action is done in those. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. With that, I watched John Wick not so long ago, and that sort of pushed itself maybe above it now. Again,
another level.
I'd forgotten how good John Wick was until I watched it again.
I actually saw it for the first time a week and a half ago.
Oh, yeah.
That's a huge spot, but I finally saw John Wick. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
No, absolutely. I love the Bourne films. I own them all. Including Legacy.
including Jason Bourne, or no?
Even including.
Really?
I'm a completist as well when it comes to things like that.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, with the collection I've got on there, it's a massive DVD collection, and I'm I don't particularly but I've got this gap. If it don't stop now, I've not got them all.
Yeah.
In fact, I watched it again the other night, and it serves a purpose as being let's just stop this now, and it's not the best. From 5 films, $800 million US box, which is not a bad return from 6 movies. There's not a single one that's dropped under the 100 million lifetime gross on there. So
exactly.
It's fantastic, and as I say, it's the way that it gave the spy film a shot in the arm.
A shot in the arm, yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. It reinvigorated that in a sort of mainstream sense. Because I mean, there are fun spy movies in the '90s and stuff, but Bourne definitely, I think, brought that back to the front. I think of
give it a gritty
crime movies. Yeah.
Gritty, not so much realism to it, but based less on invisible cars and more.
It's not outlandish. It's not real, but it's not outlandish.
Yeah.
Basically.
No, absolutely. And we're done. Thank you. Yeah, we've made it through. Thank you once again to this week's guest, Paul. Thank you just very, very quickly up front to Che Watson and his band Princip, who very kindly donated the first 10 seconds of their song Merry Go Round for the intro for this podcast. Remind people we're on iTunes and Podbean, and also I managed to find out without even realising the feed's actually going on YouTube as well, which I didn't even realise I'd linked everything together for that. But so please download the episodes, follow the Podbean feed, or subscribe via iTunes. Rate and review, it really do help. Paul, is there anything you'd like to plug, or anything else? Anything you'd like to? Any final words?
Yeah, you can find me doing movie trivia online on Worldwide Movie Games on YouTube. I am soon to be in the There Will Be Trivia Team Tournament Finals, so that's some exciting stuff there. Check me out there. You can find me on Letterboxd, just search my name, Paul Oyama. I'm there. You can find me on Instagram at p.k.o, and just variously across the internet on Facebook and different social media platforms, just talking movies, loving movies, and hopefully one day you can see me making them. So,
fantastic. If you fancy being in on the podcast yourself, then you can email the pod on thatmadeyourlist@outlook.com. We're on Twitter with @thatmadeyour. We also have our own Facebook page, That Made Your List. That's where you can find all the old episodes, as well as a pinned post of all the questions that are asked. So please get involved, comment on the posts, tell me if you think I've been harsh, or if you think certain people have made poor choices, which on this one, I don't think there's a single bad choice. There's lots of films that I've not seen and not heard of, but
that's why I chose the obscure one, so I wouldn't get the title dropped on me.
No, absolutely not happening on this one. Not happening on this one. I've been Dave Goodjar, he's been Paul Oyama, and this has been That Made Your List.